Hello everyone and welcome to our pilot full spectrum news interview where we're questioning specialized experts about current events and the things that you need to know. Today's guest is Dr. Ian Mackay. Dr. Mackay is a virologist and an associate professor at the University of Queensland in Australia. He is the producer of the website Virology Down Under, where he vigilantly updates the world with relevant infectious disease information, and he's here with us today to talk about the MERS coronavirus. Dr. Mackay, how are you doing today?
I'm well, thanks very much.
Can you give us a little bit of your background and how you found interest in virology?
I'm a virologist of 20 years, and I've got a particular focus on viruses of the respiratory tract. Now, I started off as a lab testing person when I went through university, and then I started doing a PhD and found there were lots of questions about viruses that we don't have answers for. And that's really what's driven me to stay in this particular area and really find it quite interesting.
Now, we're seeing an increase in the amount of information regarding the Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, from a high mortality rate to clusters of the disease within healthcare facilities. Can you tell us about the MERS coronavirus, what is known and unknown, and what questions you're looking to have answered in the near future?
A lot is not known. What we know at the moment are there are about 94 cases of the virus, and of which about half of those cases have died. But most of those cases are a particular type of person or patient. They have underlying diseases, they're male, they're a little bit older, towards the 60 and above end. Particularly kidney disease. So we see a lot of hospital-based cases because those are the sites where these patients are being treated. That's why we see a lot of nosocomial infections and clusters coming from about those hospitals, we think. We don't know a lot of things, including what the host is for this virus, where it came from. Has it come from animals, or has it been in Saudi Arabia in particular, which is the hotspot for cases, for a number of years? We really don't know. We don't know how these patients are getting the virus. If it is from an animal, what sort of contact are they having? We don't know how well it transmits from patient to patient. We don't know whether that's an aerosol-based thing. And because of that, we don't really know the best site to sample. Should we be sampling patients from the upper airways, the lower airways, both? We do see a number of lab detections which miss MERS coronavirus positives from samples in the upper airways, but they're detected in the lower airways. So that suggests perhaps the virus grows better in the lungs or the things below the pharynx.
The World Health Organization is currently recommending lower tract specimens, is that right?
That's correct. And the papers that are coming out, we still see positives in the upper respiratory tract as well. But in those cases that may be negative but are highly suspected of being positive for MERS coronavirus, the lower respiratory tract does seem to yield more positives. We also don't know much about the variation of the virus. At the moment, it doesn't seem to be very well spread between people, but that may change as the virus evolves, as it infects more people. So that's something we need to watch as well.
What's your opinion on the mortality rating of MERS? Do you believe that it truly stands above 50%, or are there a lot of atypical cases that are being missed and therefore not counted?
It could well be that we're missing atypical cases, and by atypical, I assume you mean cases that maybe don't show a lot of signs or symptoms of disease, but still have that virus. And we don't know that because that sort of testing isn't being done a lot. It is for the contacts immediately surrounding cases that we know of that are positive, but it's not so much for people that may be carrying the virus for a short period of time, but aren't very, very sick. And those are the cases that are being studied mostly. So I think that 50% is high at the moment. It reflects a particular group that's most at risk of severe outcomes, which are those people with, as I said, underlying conditions that are older and that are male, particularly in the Arabian Peninsula. I think we'll find as more testing happens outside of this area and more studies are done looking for where the virus is, that number will probably go down, although at the moment it's settled at about 50% and stayed there for a while now.
Saudi Arabia has been the epicenter of new MERS cases, and looking at historical data, the country is expecting millions of pilgrims to visit between now and October for arguably the largest mass gathering in the world. Do you think that we'll see an increase in MERS cases in the coming months as a result?
I think we probably will see a bit of a bump in numbers. I don't think it'll be a large bump or a massive bump. As I say, the transmission doesn't seem to be that great from one person to the next. Most of the transmission happens from people that are quite close to an ill patient. And then there doesn't seem to be a second step after that to another person. So I don't think we'll see a large increase, but I do think we'll see some rise in the numbers.
Now, it's our opinion that new viruses are one of the more prominent threats that mankind faces, and I think HIV is a great example of how a novel virus can outsmart some of our best tools for treatment. What are your thoughts on the pandemic possibilities of the MERS coronavirus becoming a global threat?
The potential's there. I think the potential is there in a number of viruses, like the H7N9 influenza we saw break out earlier in the year. Based on what we know right now and about the virus that we know right now, that the potential for pandemic is pretty low. And I think the WHO have stressed that and made that quite clear. It's not got the potential to spread very quickly between people, and that's really what it is. It's a numbers game and transmission. So at the moment, that's not likely to happen. But we need to be vigilant. We need to keep looking at the virus and keep studying its genetic signatures and see if it changes and adapts and becomes more able to spread rapidly and through people. And that's possibly not happening enough at the moment, but hopefully it will start to pick up before the Hajj really draws a lot of people.
And do you think the pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia could be the international jump needed for the virus to thrive in nations where the disease may find more susceptible hosts or in areas that may be less equipped to handle the virus?
Possibly. It's pure speculation at the moment. It could do that. I think we'd need to see a jump in the way the virus, a change in the way the virus jumps from people to people. At the moment, it's probably not going to alone spread quickly just because there are a lot more hosts. There will be more infections, but not a vast and exponential rise in them, I don't think, unless the virus itself changes.
And what are your thoughts on the male versus female infection rates? Is it a cultural issue in a predominantly male-driven society, or is the disease somehow more virulent with men?
It's certainly a lot more males, disproportionately male, and disproportionately in that older age group compared to the population of Saudi Arabia, again, the hot zone for the MERS coronavirus. Why? We don't know, but there could be a risk factor there to do with being male in this particular place, and maybe activities that put males at greater risk of being exposed to whatever the host for this virus is, and that sort of work is something we'd like to see answers to down the track as well.
Well, Dr. Mackay, we're almost out of time. We greatly appreciate having you on with us today to give everyone this information. We hope that you'll come back with updates regarding the MERS coronavirus, as well as other infectious diseases that our world currently faces. For those listening, could you please give everyone your website address and what information the viewers can expect to see there?
Virology Down Under, if you Google that, you'll either find my blog or the website where I have a lot of pages that has background information, hopefully made a little bit more simple, on a number of different respiratory viruses and other viruses that infect the world. It's just based down here in Australia.
It was great having you on with us today, Dr. Mackay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we encourage everybody to visit the Virology Down Under website. You can find it by Googling Virology Down Under or go to virologydownunder.blogspot.com.au, where you'll find constantly updated information regarding global disease outbreaks. And that's it for this Full Spectrum News interview. Check back daily for updated news and emergency preparedness information with the news in 2 minutes, and we hope to see you again soon. Today's interview is brought to you by shtfplan.com, where even the officials go for news, and sqmetals.com for all your precious metal needs.